we have been very concerned
नमस्कार एंड वेलकम टू RCI नवशिखर चैनल। RCI के नवशिखर चैनल में हमारे सभी दर्शकों का स्वागत है। आज के हमारे प्रोग्राम का टॉपिक है नेशनल एसोसिएशन ऑफ एंड फॉर द ब्लाइंड। एंड टुडे वी हैव विद अस इन आवर स्टूडियो डॉक्टर A.K. मित्तल, एक्स डायरेक्टर NIVH and President for All India Confederation of the Blind. Welcome to RCI Navshikhar channel, sir.
Thank you.
And we have Mr. K.C. Pandey, ex-secretary PRA Delhi and General Secretary Indian Blind Sports Association. Welcome to RCI Navshikhar channel, sir.
Thank you.
Progressing further, I would like to inform our viewers that they can call us for their any queries. हमारा टोल फ्री नंबर है 1800-11-2008। हमारा स्टूडियो नंबर है 265-11-613 और हमारा फैक्स नंबर है 265-11-609। जैसे कि हमने बताया कि आज के हमारे प्रोग्राम का टॉपिक है नेशनल एसोसिएशन ऑफ एंड फॉर द ब्लाइंड। तो मैं मित्तल सर से पूछना चाहूँगी, ये जो हम बात कर रहे हैं ऑफ एंड फॉर द ब्लाइंड, इसके बीच में बेसिक डिफरेंस क्या है, ऑफ एंड फॉर?
Yes, thank you. Let us take up the question which the anchor has raised, which is, let us be clear on the topic. It is national associations or national organizations of and for the blind. And for a moment we want to reflect upon what is this of and for the blind. Now when we say an organization for the blind, it still means that this is a group or this is an organization which is trying to help blind persons. Trying to help blind persons means that it is running programs or services or activities of one kind or the other to empower blind persons, or as we state now, persons with visual impairment. The difference, however, is that an organization for the blind is primarily led and steered by well-meaning, well-intentioned persons who are not necessarily blind themselves. So these are organizations where activities are planned and executed mostly by persons with normal vision. They decide what blind persons need. They determine how the needs of blind persons are going to be addressed, and they chalk out plans for implementing these activities. Now this has been a traditional approach we would like our viewers to understand. The beginning, the origins of work with blind persons is the way that organizations have for the blind have come up. That's how the organizations have come up. In the beginning, most organizations in the field was started by sighted persons, and they were working to empower visually impaired persons. So those are organizations for the blind, where you have a sighted person as the president of the organization, you have a sighted person as the secretary general maybe, and most of the governing council members are those who have normal vision. An organization of the blind, on the other hand, is of rather recent origin. You know, as work for visually impaired persons has progressed in the world and in our country, more and more persons with visual impairment have tried to come forward and take on for themselves positions of leadership. So, blind persons have organized themselves into what is called a self-help organization. An organization of the blind is, in a way, a self-help organization, which means that in such organizations, it is the blind persons who contemplate and plan what is best for them. It is blind persons who charter out a course of action for addressing the identified needs of blind persons. And an organization of the blind or a self-help organization normally has a visually impaired person or persons in important leading decision-making positions. So this is an example. A self-help organization or an organization of the blind is an example of persons with common interest, common problems, common concerns coming together and trying to do through their own initiatives what is best for them. At the same time, I would like the viewers also to understand that there is no controversy, there is no dispute between an organization, whether it is for the blind or of the blind, or there should not be any dispute, because the ultimate goal of both organizations is to empower blind persons. So long as that is the focus of attention, there should not be any kind of a dispute at all. That is why people have now started dropping the expressions organizations of and for the blind. The current term which is used, and this is what we would like our viewers to note, the current terminology is organizations working with the blind. So this is the philosophy underlying organizations of and for the blind.
सर, ये जो आपने हमें डिफरेंस बताया ऑफ एंड फॉर के बीच में, तो मैं पूछना चाहूँगी कि जितनी भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं इंडिया में जो कि विजुअल इम्पेयरमेंट की फील्ड में जो भी वर्क कर रही हैं, तो बेसिकली दे आर ऑफ और फॉर?
You see, they are both. As I said, work with blind persons in India was initiated by organizations which we now call organizations for the blind. But as we shall see when we come to specific presentations, during 70s and 80s, organizations of the blind have also come forward. So both the types of organizations are now making their contributions.
And which is the best fit approach? Like you said, for is the more traditional approach, and off it is the more recent trend. So what we can say, which is the best fit, like off or for in terms of?
You see, there is no question of either or. As I was trying to explain during my initial discussion, the best fit, as you call it, a best fit organization is one which takes into consideration, which places in focus the actual needs of persons with visual impairment, not the perceived needs of visually impaired persons. So long as an organization places in the right focus the actual needs, the felt needs of visually impaired persons, it is not very material whether it is for the organization or for the blind or of the blind, because if you have in the center of your attention the actual needs of the blind, then your planning strategies would also evolve from that approach. Would you agree, Pandya sir?
Sure, that's.
But so like if we look in this aspect, like if a visually impaired person is at a high position in some organization, and he'll be better able to understand the problems, he'll be better able to promote the organization further with new techniques and new inventives, because he'll be better able to understand what all the other blind persons are facing. So he'll be more like taking initiatives on that aspect. Don't you
You
think
see,
so?
this has raised a very interesting ideological question. You know, organizations of the blind have originated from the age-old saying, the wearer knows where the shoe pinches.
Right.
Now, that means that if a person is holding an important position in an organization, then naturally he will understand better as to what are the specific issues and problems of persons who are similarly placed. However, these are the days of inclusion.
Right.
Our viewers must have read and heard about inclusive education. Inclusive education is basically, inclusion is basically a philosophy. And this philosophy, if we are saying only the blind persons can understand what is best for the blind, then we are actually not working for inclusion. We are in a way working for exclusion in the other sense.
Right.
Because then we are excluding sighted persons, which is not right. Because there are examples, and quite a few examples, where there have been sighted persons who have understood the requirements of blind persons very well, just as well as a person without sight. So, yes, on paper, a person who cannot see would or and should understand the problems better, but at the same time, it is not that we are saying that the problems of the blind are so unique, so characteristic, that one has to be blind only to understand them.
और सर जैसे हम बात करें ऑफ और फॉर के बीच में हमने देख लिया व्हाट इज़ द डिफरेंस बेसिकली. हम बात करें कब से नेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस और नेशनल एसोसिएशंस. सो व्हाट इज़ दिस क्राइटेरिया, व्हाट इज़ दिस स्पेसिफिक कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स व्हिच डिमार्केट एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अ नेशनल वन?
This is a very important point you have brought up, because in India there are today about 250 odd associations, organizations, institutions in the field of work with blind persons. So many have claimed that they too are national organizations. Therefore, it is essential for us at this stage itself to understand whom we would call a national organization. There are 4 basic characteristics or prerequisites for an organization to be adjudged truly national. Prerequisite number 1, the organization should have branches and affiliates throughout the country. Prerequisite number 2, the organization should have activities in more states than just one. It is not that the activities are in just one city and then it becomes a national organization. No, the activities have to be, if not throughout the country, because this is a very large country, but the activities should have some kind of a national or more than state level perspective. So, greater coverage through the activities, that is criterion number 2. Criterion number 3 is that the audience that we are trying to address, the beneficiaries, people who take advantage of our activities and services, should also come from all parts of the country, should belong to all age groups, and there should be gender balance. So the beneficiaries should be from all over the country, all age groups, and gender balance, equal representation of men and women in the group of beneficiaries. And number 4, a truly national organization is one which is also recognized as a national body by the corresponding international organization. An international organization must give accreditation to our association as the national body. Now, what do we mean by an international organization? We will come to it when we make our specific presentations.
Okay. तो मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूँगी, जैसे सर ने हमें बताया कि ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के बारे में, व्हाट इज़ अ स्पेसिफिक क्राइटेरिया टू कॉल द पर्टिकुलर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन नेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। तो क्या जैसे RCI है, इट्स द मेन गवर्निंग बॉडी, बहुत सारे जैसे नेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ मेंटली हैंडीकैप्ड है, बहुत सारे इंस्टीट्यूट हैं डिसेबिलिटी फील्ड में, उनको गवर्न करता है जो भी RCI या मेन स्टैट्यूटरी बॉडी। ऐसा कि विजुअल इम्पेयरमेंट की फील्ड में कोई ऐसी स्टैट्यूटरी बॉडी या गवर्निंग बॉडी है कि जो सारे नेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को कंट्रोल कर रही है या इंस्ट्रक्शंस प्रोवाइड कर रही हैं?
जहाँ तक मेरी जानकारी है, इस किस्म की कोई एक ऐसी संस्था या कोई ऐसा कार्यालय या कोई चीज़ नहीं है कि जो कि इस किस्म से राष्ट्रीयता की उनको पदवी प्रदान करता हो। मगर जैसा कि मित्तल जी ने बताया कि उनकी एक्टिविटीज़ क्या होनी चाहिए, 3-4 क्राइटेरिया जो आपने बताए थे, जो उसमें खरा उतरता है वो राष्ट्रीय है। और सबसे बड़ी बात, उनकी एक्टिविटी राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर कितनी व्यापक है, कितनी सक्रिय है, वो उसको निर्धारित करता है।
और ये जो नेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस है, दे कैन हैव देयर लाइक रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशन फॉर्मेटेड बाय देमसेल्व्स ओनली। देयर इज़ नो स्पेसिफिक क्राइटेरिया लाइक फॉर द ऑल द जितनी भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं इंडिया में, क्या उनके लिए कुछ स्पेसिफिक रूल्स हैं जो कि बिल्कुल सिमिलर होने चाहिए, या हर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का अपना अलग रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशन फॉर्मेटेड है?
देखिए, कोई भी संस्था की जब स्थापना होती है तो वो सोसाइटीज़ रजिस्ट्रेशन एक्ट के मुताबिक होती है, और उनकी किसी भी संस्था की जो पहली उसकी जो रजिस्ट्रेशन होता है वो राज्य स्तर पर ही होता है। बाकी उसकी एक्टिविटीज़ हैं और उनका जुड़ाव किस तरह से राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर है, वो निर्धारित करता है कि वो एक राष्ट्रीय स्तर की संस्था है।
थैंक यू सर। तो जैसे कि अभी हमने बात करी व्हाट इज़ द मेन डिफरेंस बिटवीन ऑफ एंड फॉर, फिर हमने 4 बेसिक क्राइटेरियाज देखे टू कॉल एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अ नेशनल वन। व्हाट आर दीज बेसिक क्राइटेरियाज, हमने इसके बारे में डिस्कशन किया। अब हम आगे बढ़ते हुए देखते हैं कि नेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट फॉर विजुअली हैंडीकैप्ड है, इसके बारे में हम डिस्कशन करेंगे। तो चलिए मित्तल सर से पूछते हैं। सर, आप हमें बताना चाहेंगे NIVH के बारे में, बिकॉज यू आर द एक्स डायरेक्टर, सो मोर सूटेबल पर्सन कि आप ही हमें बताएं NIVH के बारे में।
You see, this brings me to the earlier question which you had also raised, whether there is some kind of a parallel organization in the field of visual impairment, like RCI is for the disability sector. As Pandey Sahab has pointed out, not exactly on the same lines, but we have National Institute for the Visually Handicapped. This is a Government of India organization, the only national organization which is run and funded by the government. And we will briefly talk about this organization, though many of our viewers would be familiar with its activities. This institute, in brief, we call it NIVH. NIVH headquarters are located in the foothills of the Himalayas at Dehradun, Uttarakhand, at Rajpur Road. The institute has a very interesting history. In 1943, in July 1943, a hostel for war-blinded persons was set up by another organization, St. Dunstan's Association organization, at the same place where NIVH is today. And this hostel was providing rehabilitation to persons who had lost sight during the Second World War. By 1949, the task of providing training and rehabilitation to the war veterans had been completed. So in January 1, 1950, the Government of India, in the Ministry of Education, took over this hostel for the war blinded and renamed it as the Training Center for the Adult Blind, in short TCAB. So TCAB formed the nucleus of the present sprawling services of NIVH. In 1951, at the same premises, another unit came up which was called the Central Braille Press. We are making a mention of this because this was the first Braille production establishment set up in India. And the same year, in the same place, another unit came up which undertook manufacture of simple assistive devices required for the blind. Another historic development because this marked the beginning of the production of assistive devices for the blind indigenously. So the institute went, these units went on expanding. We will not go into the details of the history at length. In 1979, July 1979, all the various units working at Rajpur Road, and there were many units at that time, those were all amalgamated together. Those were all brought under one umbrella, and the Government of India established the National Institute for the Visually Handicapped. Now, this was among the earliest national institutes. Our viewers will be aware. Since then, other institutes have come up: National Institute for the Mentally Handicapped, National Institute for the Hearing Handicapped, for the earlier the National Institute for the Orthopedically Handicapped. There are two other national institutes now. But NIVH started functioning under the Government of India in 1979, and in October 1982, structurally, there was a slight change in the working of NIVH. It was declared an autonomous body. So now, NIVH is the biggest organization working with blind people in India, is the apex organization. It has various departments. It produces braille books. It records textbooks and other reading material on cassettes. So that is their material production exercise. A very large braille press. Then they have the training center for the adult blind, for men and women. NIVH has a school for blind children, which is called the Model School for Visually Handicapped, MSVH. Production of devices, they have a workshop which is titled MBA, Manufacture of Braille Appliances. They have also taken a number of new programs like research and development activities and teacher education. They are also running a program for teacher education, and they are running and funding teacher education activities throughout the country at the diploma level and at the degree level, one of which Mr. Pandey is also conducting at his organization. Then NIVH is not just confined to Dehradun. It has outreach services, which means it reaches out to blind people all over the country. It has a big regional center at Chennai, which looks after the southern part of the country, which was started in October 1988. This regional center provides vocational training, undertakes production of books, carries out research and development activities, rural rehabilitation, and consultancy and liaison work. The institute also has small units called chapters, which are located for the south. There is a small chapter at Secunderabad in the premises of NIMH, and in the east, the institute has a small chapter in Calcutta in the premises of NIOH. It is our understanding that the institute is contemplating extension programs for the northeastern region also. A major thrust to the institute's activities is sought to be given now in the field of braille development, because a new establishment has come up, which is the Braille Council of India, which the institute is managing. And the task of this Braille Council under NIVH is to promote and stimulate braille education, braille production and braille usage throughout the country.
So जो आपने सारी हमें एक्टिविटीज़ बताई जो भी NIVH में हो रही हैं, तो मैं ये पूछना चाहूँगी कि does it also provide like employment for its trainees, like for the visually impaired persons who are trained from there?
The institute has what they call a RNC department, which is the rehabilitation and consultancy. It has placement officials on their staff. the important task of the Institute's rehabilitation department, the important tasks are twofold. One, of course, you have pointed out, to find suitable work opportunities for blind persons who are trained at the Institute itself. And more importantly, because that way the Institute can reach only very few people, more importantly, to locate jobs, identify jobs which can be shown to others that these jobs can actually be undertaken by blind persons. So job identification is also an important part of the Institute's activities. So for employment, the Institute is imparting training in a number of areas. Some of the new areas include physiotherapy and computer applications. They have also not just organized employment, they have also recently undertaken training for preparing blind persons to take up self-employment activities. But one thing we should understand, the underlying philosophy behind establishing national institutes, including NIVH, was not that these institutes should just be rendering service. These were not intended and are not service delivery organizations. The expectation from NIVH is that they should develop modules or model services which should be cost effective, which should be replicable by others in the field. To that extent, consultancy and liaison, research and development are very important components of the mandate which the Institute has.
So we have been hearing like the visually impaired person, they're mostly employed with with the computer training things, or either like the teachers or with their braille production. Are there any other fields in which these visually impaired are employed, like apart from these teacher training things and the braille production and everything?
There are a very large number of new areas which are now coming up in which blind persons can be employed. Very briefly, there are number of advocates who are working in different towns and cities of the country. In Chennai, where I used to work, there is even a blind person who has been appointed as a magistrate, a first of its kind. A couple of blind persons have now even qualified the organized services, civil services examinations, and one person has just completed his training at the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy in Missouri, and he's gone back, he got the MP cadre, and he's working as a civil servant, as an IAS officer there. Apart from administrative service, Government of India, there are blind persons who are working in the railway department in Chennai. There's a blind person who went through the allied services, and he's now working in the railway department in Chennai as the assistant personnel manager. There is a person in the Indian Postal Service. Mr. Pandey will very probably quickly tell you about some of the self-employment programs which he's running. Pandey, would you like to share that with the...
Yeah, sure. In fact, getting employment for those who we have, been running various vocational training programs, which includes computer training and all those things, and including some of the manual, light engineering training programs and general mechanic machine operators program and massage training program. Initially, we had been focusing only on finding employment for them. But we have seen that there are quite a number of enterprising persons who have established their own works or factories or production houses or service centers in which they have employed visually challenged persons also. There are persons who have received training in massage training. For example, massage training is essentially best for self-employment.
Right.
And I know of a girl who learned massage in our center, and she has opened a big center there in Manipur, and she has employed 4 or 5 visually challenged girls over there.
What about your reflexology?
Yes,
program?
that's right. And reflexology is again, it's gaining quite popularity. And in fact, our massage training, we have incorporated an element of reflexology, magnetotherapy also. It's kind of pain management that we call it.
Right.
So these are some new opportunities are opening up, and with the IT enabled services, the much of the things which were thought that a visually challenged person may not be able to do, those things have become possible, and we should hope to see. And I think there was a report about a film producer, a visually challenged film producer also.
Yeah, he did a film. Yeah, there was a film released. Yeah.
There was a film released in which he did the main role.
Exactly. तो सर मैं ये भी पूछना चाहूँगी कि जैसे ये तो सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट के बारे में भी आपने बताया और ये सब जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ के बारे में हमें आपने बताया, तो क्या न्यूज़पेपर्स में भी गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर में भी कुछ जॉब रिजर्वेशंस हैं या कुछ ऐसी उनके लिए पोस्ट वगैरह भी निकलती हैं फॉर द विजुअली इम्पेयर्ड फॉर विच दे कैन अप्लाई?
In the government sector and the public sector undertakings, 1% jobs are reserved as per the Persons with Disabilities Act. 1% jobs are reserved across the spectrum. Earlier they were only reserved in C and D groups of jobs. Now they are available right across the board for blind or low vision persons. The 1% reservation does exist, and it is according to this reservation that posts are required to be notified or advertised by the controlling departments, ministries and establishments.
Okay. So till now we discussed about the basic difference between off and for, and we discussed about what are the different criteria according to which an organization is accredited to a national, according to which it is said to be a national organization, and we discussed about the NIVH, which is National Institute for Visually Handicapped. We'll carry on with our discussion after a short break. See you after a while. Welcome back. Let me just sum up what we have read earlier. Initially, we have discussed about the difference between for and of. If we talk about the organization or association for the blind, then we are basically talking that the activities are planned and executed by the normal vision persons, and it's more of a traditional approach. And if we talk about the organization and or association of the blind, then we are talking about the recent trend. It's more of a self-help organization by the visually impaired persons, where the activities are planned and executed by them. Then we discussed about the different criteria or the characteristics according to which we can say a particular organization or association as national. We discussed them as, first, the activities that should be conducted not in one state only but in many states. Then it should have the branches and affiliates all over the country. Then the beneficiaries, they should be from all over the country and should be from all the age groups, and there should be a gender balance. Then we discussed that some international organization should be accrediting this organization. Then only we can say a particular organization or association as national. Then we discussed about the NIVH, which is National Institute for Visually Handicapped. Its headquarters are at Dehradun. Initially, it was a hostel for war blinded, but on January 1, 1950, it was converted into a training center for adult blind. Then on 1951, there was a center for Braille press started over there with the production of simple assistive devices, and these two are the first of its kind. On October 1982, it was declared as an autonomous body, and now the NIVH, it's having activities related to research and development. The teacher training programs are being run like in diploma and degree things, and there are also outreach services are also planning there. So we discussed about the NIVH, which is National Institute for Visually Handicapped. आगे बढ़ते हुए मिस्टर पांडे, मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूँगी कि जो नेशनल एसोसिएशन ऑफ ब्लाइंड है, इसके बारे में आप हमें क्या बताना चाहेंगे?
देखिए, बड़ी एक इंटरेस्टिंग बात है कि नेशनल एसोसिएशन ऑफ द ब्लाइंड, इसकी शुरुआत इट स्टार्टेड विद द आइडिया वाज जनरेटेड बाय a group of visually challenged persons who thought of doing something about it. But when in January 1952 the organization was formally formed, Mr. B.G. Kher, then the Premier of Bombay State, he became the first president. So essentially NAB is an association for the blind, but it has got active participation of a very, very large number of visually challenged persons, and they hold a fairly important positions there in their activities.
And
So
we're talking about the National Association for the Blind India.
in India, yes.
Okay.
So I can.
Yeah.
We
you
have
can
a, we
proceed
have a
further.
slide presentation from NAB,
Yeah.
which I would like to present before the audience. The association is headquartered in Mumbai, and it has got a very prominent location there in Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan Road, which is Worli Sea Face, and it has many of the activities were running from there. NAB has the vision to work towards an environment where each and every blind person of this country will be able to lead a life up to his optimum potential and be so empowered as to be able to work towards his own growth and development. And its mission is to prevent blindness as far as possible, to empower the blind with education and training towards self-sufficiency through employment or self-employment, and thereby integrate them with dignity into mainstream society. As I mentioned, its historical evolution in 1930, some blind individuals in the western part of India got together and thought of ways to work for the welfare of their brethren. This process continued till the mid-40s, and then came the establishment of Blind Men's Association. This group of like-minded individuals gathered at Surat and established the Blind Men's Association, perhaps first organization of its kind in this country. Barrister Rustam, Mirwanji, Alpaiwala and Mangulal Jetlal Shah and Dr. Rajendra Trivyas, all of whom were blind, were the main individuals involved in these efforts. On January 19, 1952, Blind Men's Association convened the first All India Conference for the Blind in Mumbai. Mr. B.G. Kher, the then Premier of Bombay Province, moved a resolution in this conference which led to the establishment of the NAB. The aims and objectives of NAB are welfare of the blind and their integration in society, coordinate activities of other like-minded organizations, educate the blind, prevention of blindness, rehabilitation and employment of the blind, sports and recreation of the blind, and provide a meeting place for the blind, international coordination and cooperation with like-minded organizations, arrange conferences and seminars relating to the cause of the blind, raise funds for the association by appropriate means, expand activities of the association by establishing state and district branch. Here I think comes its position as a national body. It has got many branches all over the country. Promote, maintain suitable research facilities and libraries, collect and disseminate information relating to the blind, evolve and adapt aids and appliances for education and mobilization of the blind, work for the progress of the blind in rural areas and develop manpower required for the same. So that way you can see it has got a very wide mandate, and it is working in virtually, from the, as you say, from the cradle to grave. That's as they claim it, as the NAB says. Create or assist creating literature for the blind in accessible formats like braille, audio and large print. Develop training centers for imparting vocational training to the blind. Develop manpower for working in the field of blind welfare. Look after the welfare of the dependents of the blind.
सर जैसे हमने यहाँ पे देखा था NIVH में टीचर एजुकेशन प्रोग्राम भी हो रहा था, तो डिप्लोमा एंड डिग्री प्रोग्राम्स, तो वैसे ही कुछ प्रोग्राम NAB में भी होता है? जी
बिल्कुल है, वहाँ पर ट्रेनिंग सेंटर फॉर द टीचर्स ऑफ द विजुअली हैंडीकैप्ड, वहाँ पर डिप्लोमा कोर्स वो चलाते हैं.
ओके और सर जैसे हमने बात करी नेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के बारे में, जहाँ पे हमने कैरेक्टरिस्टिक देखा था इट शुड हैव ब्रांचेस एंड एफिलिएट्स ऑल ओवर द कंट्री. तो जैसे हमने NIVH की बात करी, वो भी एम्प्लॉयमेंट प्रोवाइड करते हैं फॉर द विजुअली इम्पेयर्ड लाइक ऑल ओवर द कंट्री, और NAB भी प्रोवाइड करता है. तो कहीं आके ये कुछ क्लम्जीनेस नहीं हो जाती कि व्हाट शुड बी देयर पॉसिबल एरिया ऑफ गवर्निंग these things, like for a certain part of the country should be controlled by NAVH or certain part of the country should be controlled by the NAB. कुछ ऐसा procedure है?
देखिए, it's not a question of controlling, it is basically a matter of reaching out services. So it's not a matter of clash. As a matter of fact, special employment exchange भी होते हैं जहाँ पर persons with disabilities लोग apply कर सकते हैं. Then we say, what is the role of those employment? You see, there is a lot of effort is required to convince the employers and to demonstrate the capabilities of the persons and to convince all the people, which needs to be done at very large scale. And if NAB or any organization does that, it is giving a very good service, which should be welcome. Rather, it should be considered as a clash.
Right. Then moving further.
Yes, you asked me about the various departments. The NAB, they have a Department of Education, and they have a Braille press, and they have a All India Talking Book Center by the name NAB MP Shah All India Talking Book Center. They have Department of Rehabilitation, Department of Employment, then the Committee for the Advancement of Status of Blind Women. This is a very important thing. And NAB Department of Prevention of Blindness, the Client Service Department, Finance Raising Committee, Louis Braille Memorial Research Center, and Advocacy Department, and they also run Microsoft Cyber Cafe, and they have a nursery for the blind, Mata Lakshmi Nursery for the Blind.
और सर जो हमने बताया एडवांसमेंट ऑफ द स्टेटस फॉर द ब्लाइंड वुमेन, ये किस तरीके से, कुछ क्या स्पेसिफिक प्रोग्राम है जिसके तहत ये होता है?
Yes, I can give you some example of that.
So we are discussing about.
Yes, you see, you know, their advancement. NAB has a committee for advancement of status of blind women, which they provide, financial support for education, self-employment, medical treatment, house repair, social rehabilitation, then basic counseling, domiciliary and referral service for educational, marital, legal and family related problems also. That we can educational scholarship, providing educational scholarship, sponsorship of computer education, sports and excursion, short-term training programs. So they even run some of the sheltered workshop. There's an Utkarsh Job Development Center they have, where women work and learn vocations, and also and then they have not only that in cities, but they are also reaching out to, they have rural projects also for women. They have also project for reaching out to the tribals also, tribal women also. So there's a very big mandate they have, and they are working in various.
सर ये जो प्रिवेंशन ऑफ ब्लाइंडनेस है, जैसे अगर हम दिल्ली में देखें, नैब दिल्ली को अगर हम देखें, सो दे हैव कोलैबोरेटेड विद द वेन्यू आई इंस्टीट्यूट एंड रिसर्च सेंटर. सो ये जो प्रिवेंशन ऑफ ब्लाइंडनेस है, जो नैब इंडिया की अगर हम बात करें, कुछ स्पेसिफिक हॉस्पिटल ऐसे कोलैबोरेशन होते हैं जहाँ पे मतलब ये जो प्रिवेंशन ऑफ ब्लाइंडनेस की अगर हम स्पेसिफिक बात करें कि कोलैबोरेशन है हॉस्पिटल्स के साथ?
You see, the national associations or the organizations working for the visually challenged, those who have a mandate of working in the field of prevention of blindness, or they have to have the cooperation of the specialist in the field. So
right.
it's necessary. They have organizations have reach to the visually challenged persons, and they become sort of via media, or they can work together with hospitals, and they can do excellent job, and which they are doing. That's
right. और सर जैसे हम बात कर रहे हैं कि हमने एम्प्लॉयमेंट के बारे में बात करी, ब्रेल प्रेस के बारे में बात करी, डिफरेंट जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ के बारे में बात करी. अगर हम देखें लाइक इफ़ इट इज़ कंसर्न विद द मैरिज थिंग, लाइक विजुअली इम्पेयर्ड के लिए कुछ ऐसा भी प्रोविजन प्रोवाइड करते हैं क्या ये ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस फॉर देयर फर्दर लीडिंग देयर लाइव्स?
Yes, in fact, the NAB Committee for Advancement of Status of Blind Women has this as a very important thing. They are providing, for example, as I mentioned, that the basic counseling, domiciliary and referral services for not only education but marital, legal and family related problems also.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Then moving on with our slide.
And mentioning about the various departments, NAB has a polytechnic in Ambernath, and they've launched an old age home for the aging blind in Khandala, and rehabilitation at Modak Center for Rehabilitation of the Blind in Nasik. And as mentioned to you, NAB has a very important center here in Delhi. It's that NAB Sabita Sardendu Basu Center for Blind Women, New Delhi, which I'll come to later on when the
Okay,
slide
sir.
comes. And then they have Firoz Nosher Merwanji Rehabilitation Center for Blind at Mount Abu, and then Adjustment and Training Center for the Blind in Aligarh. So, and there is one area where NAB has been very playing a very leading and very important role, is in the area of pioneering in promoting integrated education program for visually impaired children all over India. Their activities include integrated education, All India Scholarship Program, All India sponsorship programs, free distribution of braille kits, free distribution of braillers, computer training center, home-based programs for multi-disabled visually impaired, human resource development programs, consultative services. And then, as I mentioned to you, that they're running a training center for the teachers of the visually handicapped.
वैसे जो स्कॉलरशिप और स्पॉन्सरशिप प्रोग्राम के बारे में हमने डिस्कस किया है, इसके कुछ स्पेसिफिक क्राइटेरिया बताना चाहेंगे? क्योंकि हम डिस्कस कर रहे हैं नैब इंडिया के बारे में, इसके हेडक्वार्टर्स मुंबई में है. And apart from having a braille press and teacher education, they're basically having the programs for the aging blind. They're having the programs for the advancement of the women who are visually impaired. Then they also run the programs for the prevention of the blindness, the research and development thing, and also the sponsorship and the scholarship program. And they're playing a very keen part, a very major part in the integrated education. They're also providing the home-based training program for the multiple disability or the multiple visually impaired persons or the children. उससे पहले हमने डिस्कस किया था NIVH के बारे में, whose headquarters are at देहरादून, और हमने डिस्कस किया था कि on January 1, 1950 that was converted into a training center for the adult blind. Initially that was a hostel for the war blinded, but on January 1, 1950 it was converted into a training center for the adult blind. And in 1951 it was having a center for the braille press, and also it was constructing the assistive devices, and on October 1982 it was converted into an autonomous body. तो सर, जैसे कि हम इंटीग्रेटेड एजुकेशन के बारे में बात कर ही रहे हैं, जैसे हम स्लाइड में देख सकते हैं ऑल इंडिया स्कॉलरशिप प्रोग्राम हम देख रहे हैं स्लाइड में.
Yes, and NAB is offering, you asked me the question, their annual scholarship of 5,000 to VI student, visually impaired students studying under integrated education program all over India for academic purposes. And they also give financial assistance of 1,100 rupees per student to visually impaired students studying in standard 11 to 12th in the city of Mumbai and outskirts. Then they also have All India sponsorship program, and they provide assistance of rupees 1,200 to needy students under integrated education program to fulfill their personal needs like school uniforms, stationery, footwear, tuition fee, etc. And they also provide free distribution of braille kits and about 500 braille kits containing basic educational devices for learning braille, arithmetic, geometry is provided to every school for the blind and integrated education implementing agencies India. And so far 12,000 braille kits have been distributed by NAB. And NAB also has a free distribution of braillers, depending on the, but this is depending on the availability of donations. And NAB has so far distributed about 500 braillers to blind students pursuing higher education as well as to institutions. Then they also have a computer training program, computer training center. Their 1 month basic course in computer literacy is imparted to VI students and teachers of the blind. Predominantly from the rural areas, and 5 courses are conducted every year, and trainees are provided free residential facility along with the training.
सर, जैसे ये बात चल रही है फ्री डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ ब्रेलर्स की, तो बेसिकली ये आउटरीच प्रोग्राम्स में जाके होता है या कैसे ये जो फ्री डोनेशंस होती हैं?
जी, एक्चुअली आउटरीच ही होगा, क्योंकि जो हायर स्टडीज़ कर रहे हैं वो स्पेशल इंस्टीट्यूशंस में तो नहीं होते हैं, so they have to be provided. They need this braillers, and NAB helps in, depending on the donations available, they provide such braillers to needy students in higher study.
These braillers are also expensive as compared to the braille.
Yes, a simple brailler costs about 10,000 rupees approximately.
Okay. Then moving further onto the slide.
Then this another area where NAB is very active is the home-based program for multiple disabled visually impaired children, which was started in 1955 in Mumbai and its adjoining areas. It caters to about 100 children. Home-based services are offered through 4 centers in and around Mumbai. Similar programs have been set up in different parts of the country through local NGOs catering to about 65 children. Children are trained in developmental areas like motor skills, communication, sensory skills, concept formation, daily living skills, orientation and mobility, functional academics, pre-vocational skills, social skills, community-based instruction, and parents meeting. They organize parents meeting, picnics, outings, birthday get-togethers, celebrations of festivals, camps, etc. Then the other I would like to mention is the Human Resource Development Program, which is primarily aimed at community participation in integrated education programs, and NAB conducts short-term training programs for parents, volunteers, and itinerant and regular teachers throughout India. They also organize integrated camps at various locations to provide blind and sighted children opportunity to come together and learn from each other. Special skill enrichment camps for visually impaired children are organized during vacations to train them in plus curriculum. NAB also has consultative services. This department personnel has been participating in various seminars, workshop and training programs, etc. in consultative capacities. Many of them have been serving on important committees of Government of India and other important policy making bodies.
So till now we discussed about the NIVH, which is National Institute for Visually Handicapped. Then we discussed about the National Association for Blind, NAB India. आगे बढ़ते हुए सर मित्तल सर मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूँगी, ये जो 2 ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हमने डिस्कस करी, एक और ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है नेशनल फेडरेशन ऑफ द ब्लाइंड, इसके बारे में आप हमें कुछ बताना चाहेंगे?
Now moving on from NAB India, our viewers will note that this is a matter of gradual progression. The other organization we are now going to take up is called the National Federation of the Blind. Now this is a representation of the self-help movement of blind persons. National Federation of the Blind, NFB as we call it in brief, was set up in 1971 in Delhi. However, it was originally established a year earlier, and it was then called the National Federation of Blind Graduates, NFBG. But then it was thought that this is being too parochial, too narrow-minded. Let us throw this organization open to all blind persons, and that is how the organization was renamed as National Federation of the Blind. Initially, this organization, NFB as we call it, emerged very strongly as a very strong force in the form of a pressure group. It took very actively the concerns of blind persons. It played a very leading role in the drafting, in ensuring that a suitable legislation for persons with disabilities is drafted and introduced. It also very actively advocated for reservation of vacancies and jobs for persons with visual impairment. So as a pressure group, this organization has made a distinct mark for itself. The organization has about 40 branches and affiliates all over the country. It has a number of services and activities apart from advocacy and pressure group activities. They have a very large braille press which is located in Bahadurgarh, Haryana, a national braille library which is also in Bahadurgarh, Haryana itself. The braille library sends out books on loan, braille books across the region. This is a lending library. Then they run schools for blind children across the country. There are 4 schools for blind children run by them, one at Bangalore in Karnataka, one in Jammu, J&K, one in Kanpur, UP, and one in Chhattisgarh. They have a very impressive program of scholarships and assistance to persons with visual impairment. They give out scholarships, financial assistance, and soft loans to different categories of visually impaired individuals. And that is a program which has proved extremely attractive and important among visually impaired persons. They run 2 hostels for college-going blind persons in the state of Karnataka at Bangalore and Mysore. They are located in Delhi. For the benefit of our viewers, they are located in Delhi at plot number 21, Sector 6, Pushpa Vihar, Saket, New Delhi. And they are having some outreach programs too, some rural rehabilitation, and in Delhi itself, very recently, they have started self-employment activities in file cover making, envelope making, and things of that nature. Their entire objective, their entire philosophy is that blind persons should come in the fore, should come in front in all matters relating to their development. National Federation of the Blind and other organizations do not like to use the word welfare, because welfare has a bit of a dependency connotation. Our viewers will remember even the union ministries dealing with the neglected groups, the nomenclature has now changed from social welfare to social justice and empowerment. So, National Federation of the Blind and other self-help organizations like to use the term development and empowerment instead of welfare. National Federation of the Blind and other organizations also do not approve of the use of the proverb services from cradle to grave, because that seems to indicate that a child with disability is totally dependent right across the entire span of his or her life. So instead, from cradle to grave, they advocate the philosophy of service as per the actual needs. During this year and coming few years, NFB is planning to undertake a number of research and development activities, primarily with a view to promoting development of Braille and reaching out to persons with visual impairment right across the country, with a special focus on persons in the northeastern region.
But sir, like we have seen 3 organizations, NIVH, NAB India and NFB. All of them are having Braille presses and they are involved in the Braille production. But then also there is like the Braille books, they're lacking, like for the visually impaired. Why is that so?
Well, firstly, let us take it one by one. These presses are working like Bombay, they are working on a regional basis. The other thing is that textbooks, the requirement is so enormous, and the requirement is further compounded by the fact that the textbooks keep on changing every second or third year. So that's another reason why books are not available in the required number. In fact, it is estimated that only about 10% of the total books which come out in the market, only 10% are available in Braille, not just in India, but across the world. That is why NFB and other organizations have the slogan that we want to provide books in accessible format at the same time, at the same cost as is available to their sighted counterparts.
Okay. So we'll carry on the discussion on the national organizations or associations after a short break. See you after a while.
ऑटिज्म एक व्यापक विकासात्मक विकलांगता है जिसके लक्षण जीवन के प्रथम 3 वर्ष में ही दिखाई पड़ते हैं, जैसे असंगत खेल, असमान स्थूल एवं सूक्ष्म गामक क्रियाएं, शाब्दिक संकेतों पर अभिव्यक्ति न देना,
देखो, ओपन योर आईज, ओपन करो, ओपन करके ओपन,
नियमित कार्यक्रम परिवर्तन का विरोध करना एवं अवलोकनीय शारीरिक उच्च स्तरीय या निम्न स्तरीय क्रियाकलाप। UNCRPD 2007 सेक्शन 1 ऑफ आर्टिकल 4 निशक्तता के क्षेत्र में कार्यरत प्रोफेशनल के प्रशिक्षण पर महत्व देता है। ऑटिज्म के क्षेत्र में सरकारी एवं गैर सरकारी संस्थाएं कार्यरत हैं, जो भारतीय पुनर्वास परिषद द्वारा पंजीकृत हैं। सोसाइटी फॉर एडवांस स्टडी इन रिहैबिलिटेशन एक ऐसी ही गैर सरकारी संस्था है। कनिष्क 13 साल का एक ऑटिस्टिक बच्चा है, जो इसी संस्था से प्रशिक्षण प्राप्त कर रहा है। असंगत क्रियाएं, कार्यकलापों में निरस्ता, असमान स्थूल एवं सूक्ष्म गामक क्रियाएं जैसे बॉडी रॉकिंग और फिंगर रिगलिंग उसमें देखी जा सकती है। उसे मैचिंग और पेस्टिंग, पॉइंटिंग जैसी क्रियाएं सिखाई जाती हैं।
वेरी गुड। ग्लास, वेयर इज द ग्लास? ग्लास, वेरी गुड। कप को टच करो जल्दी से, कप को। वेयर इज द कप? वेरी गुड। कप में क्या करता है कनिष्क? टी पीता है। चलो ग्लास, वेयर इज द ग्लास? वेरी गुड। चलो बाउल की तरह, बाउल बाउल जल्दी से टच करो बाउल को। वेरी गुड। बाउल में क्या करता है कनिष्क?
तथा साथ ही साथ रोजमर्रा की आवश्यकताएं जैसे खाना, पीना, कपड़े पहनना, और व्यायाम संबंधी प्रशिक्षण दिया जाता है। ऑटिस्टिक बच्चों को भिन्न भिन्न प्रकार की कार्यविधियां उनके स्तर के अनुसार सिखाई जाती हैं। जैसे कुछ बच्चों के लिए कलरिंग विद इन वन एरिया, मैचिंग एंड आइडेंटिफिकेशन, फाइन मोटर स्किल्स, आई हैंड कोऑर्डिनेशन, concept of vegetables, fruits, body parts, कलर्स पर जोर दिया जाता है तथा कुछ को प्रश्न पढ़ के उत्तर देने में और रोजमर्रा की आवश्यकताओं को पूरा करने में सक्षम बनाया जाता है। इसके अलावा राइम्स, डांसिंग, सिंगिंग द्वारा लेजर एंड रिक्रिएशनल एक्टिविटीज में भाग लेने के लिए प्रोत्साहित किया जाता है। इन सभी कार्यकलापों एवं प्रशिक्षण का एकमात्र उद्देश्य उन्हें स्वनिर्भर बनाना है, ताकि ये डगमगाते पांव सक्षम बन जीवन के एक एक पायदान पर दृढ़ता से आगे बढ़ें और अपनी मंजिल को पा लें। एक तारा टिमटिमाता, उसने आकाश को छू लिया। एक लौ जली कहीं, उसने अंधकार को मिटा दिया।
वेलकम बैक। ब्रेक पे जाने से पहले वी हैव डिस्कस्ड अबाउट द टू ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस which are NAB India and NFP. First, let me sum up about the NAB India. NAB India's headquarters are at Mumbai, and it has some special programs like for the aging blind, for the advancement of the blind women, for the prevention of the blindness. It also has some scholarship and the sponsorship programs which we have discussed in detail. Then it has a free provision for the braillers. It also runs the home-based programs for the multi-disabled visually impaired children. Then we discussed about the NFP, which is a self-help organization started in 1971 in Delhi, and it is actively in accordance with the concerns of the blind persons and their reservations in the job and basically the employment opportunities. This organization or association has about 40 branches, and it has the largest braille press and also has a braille library. It also runs 4 schools in different parts of the country and also provides the scholarship programs with hostel facilities for the college going visually impaired individuals. तो हमने अब तक बात करी NIVH के बारे में, NAB इंडिया के बारे में और NFP के बारे में. आगे हम बात करेंगे AICB के बारे में, which is All India Confederation of the Blind. But before looking into the detailed aspects of AICB, we request you to have a look on a 5-minute video on AICB. So please have a look on it.
Inspired by the philosophy of the self-help movement of the blind, the All India Confederation of the Blind, popularly known as AICB, has carved out a niche for itself as a distinctive organization of the blind through its multifaceted, rights-based and service delivery activities. Formed with modest means and lofty goals, AICB today has a countrywide network and grassroots level support of the blind through its 22 affiliates and is one of the 3 organizations which represent India in the Asian Blind Union and in the World Blind Union. Though there are several schools for the blind in India, the AICB Captain Chandan Lal Special School for the Blind stands out through its enhanced emphasis on extracurricular and sports activities, as well as through its innovative resource center, and a unique science laboratory. At a time when the blind of India faced acute scarcity of Braille textbooks and general reading materials in Braille, the All India Confederation of the Blind brought about a sea change in the scenario by setting up a state-of-the-art computerized Braille press capable of producing more than 40,000 Braille pages per day. Accessibility to print materials is also provided to the blind through a high-tech recording studio. The stenography training program of the organization is highly sought after and has enabled hundreds of blind persons to obtain employment after the training. Computer training provided to scores of visually challenged persons has opened up new vistas in their lives. AICB's Crisis Management Program for those losing their sight at a later age. Through the community-based rehabilitation programs, AICB provides training and employment to the rural blind by teaching them skills such as animal husbandry, cooking, rural crafts, agricultural work, and running daily needs shops. Such interventions have brought about a total turnaround in the lives of the blind living in the villages. As a part of its commitment to work for eye care and prevention of blindness, the AICB runs eye care clinics in both urban and rural areas and conducts thousands of IOL surgeries. The outstanding contributions made by the All India Confederation of the Blind have been recognized both nationally and internationally, as these awards indicate. In the year 2005, the organization celebrated its Silver Jubilee by holding a number of unique events, including the first ever national dance competition for visually impaired children. It was a proud moment for the organization when on 18th November 2005, the Honorable President of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, inaugurated its National Consultation on Employment of the Visually Impaired. Though it has many milestones to its credit, the All India Confederation of the Blind pledges to forge ahead with even stronger commitment and vitality towards its mission to empower millions of visually challenged persons in India.
So that was all about AICB, and we have the president sitting with us. सर, जैसे कि हमने अपनी आपकी वीडियो में देखा, AICB की वीडियो में उन्होंने स्पेसिफिक बोला ग्रास रूट सपोर्ट. तो बेसिकली व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय दैट, ग्रास रूट सपोर्ट?
You see, the basic underlying philosophy behind the establishment of AICB is to mobilize public opinion about blindness and visually impaired persons, and to empower blind persons at the level of the states, at the level of the districts, at the level of the villages. So the model that we are seeking to advocate is not up down, but starting from the bottom. Now that is why we call it the grassroots level advocacy approach.
और सर, जैसे हमने वो स्कूल के बारे में देखा, जो स्कूल के बारे में बताया, what makes us different from the other schools? Like what activities are being taught there?
There are three things which would seem to make it different from many of the other schools. A, it is not located in a metropolitan city or a city or a town. It is located in a typical rural environment, in a village in the state of Haryana. There are few such schools in the country. Number two, the emphasis here is not just on bookish education. A whole range of personality development aspects are also included in the educational environment that is sought to be provided. Some of it you saw in the video, concept development
Right.
through the museum, because one of the restricting implications of visual disability is the difficulty in the range and the variety of concepts. So that one has to work deliberately and consciously. Then many times it is thought that science, though, is beyond the reach of blind persons. The AICB has assembled at one place a number of devices which enable blind persons, blind children, to undertake not just theory but practical experimental work in science, which again is different. And thirdly, the whole emphasis at the school is to enable children to have a busy schedule throughout the day and also provide them meaningful leisure time activity. So we visualize these activities and activities like braille, mobility, activities of daily living. We don't call them plus curriculum. We believe that this is not plus, this is core curriculum.
Right.
Because look at a sighted child. Can he be educated without learning to read the alphabet? The blind child learns to read the alphabet with the help of braille, and yet we have the use of the word plus curriculum for braille. So for us, braille and mobility, etc., and extracurricular activities, these are basic core skills, not plus curriculum. That's a distinct difference in approach.
And there was a thing called computerized braille. What was that?
You see, this is technology application. The full expression is computerized braille printing press. Here, what is happening is that what is computerized is the braille embosser. The braille embosser is so computerized that instantly whatever text is entered, especially in English, into the computer, it is instantly converted into braille. And it is a high-speed production, high-speed conversion, because as you saw in the video, we have what we call high-speed embossers, which convert text at the rate of 400 characters per second. There are higher capacity Braille production embossers also, but the one we are using, and that's a lot of speed. Imagine 400 characters being converted into Braille instantly,
Right.
within a second. That's the computerized embossing.
And what was the recording studio like?
Now the recording studio, there's nothing very particular about it. Many other organizations are running recording studios. NAB India, you have seen earlier, are running it too. But AICB is producing books on cassettes largely for college-going students, college-going visually impaired students who do not have access to Braille material as of now. Although, with the help of computerized Braille printing press, AICB is one of the very few, perhaps the only Braille press in the country, which is now actually producing college-level textbooks in Braille too. But the recording studio, yes, the primary objective is to produce general reading material and also college-level textbooks into audio format. Another thing we would like to highlight here, and that we'll request the viewers to convey the message to the schools, is that the AICB Braille Press is producing into Braille for three mainstream children's magazines, which are Nandan, Champak and Chandamama. These are now available in Braille, and institutions for the blind can make use of them at very nominal costs. This seeks to provide reading material to blind children at par with their sighted counterparts.
सर जैसे कि हम बात करें ब्रेल प्रेस के बारे में, तो ऑब्वियसली जो स्कूल है तो वहाँ की भी जितनी भी बुक्स हैं और जितना भी रीडिंग मटेरियल है ब्रेल प्रेस से ही आता होगा. तो मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूँगी कि जो ब्रेल प्रेस में बेसिकली बुक्स हैं फॉर द चिल्ड्रन हु आर विजुअली इम्पेयर्ड, कौन सा बोर्ड की बुक्स, वेदर CBSE और व्हाट काइंड ऑफ बुक्स डू द ब्रेल प्रेस प्रिंट्स?
You see, the Braille Press at AICB is producing books for textbooks for about 8 or 9 states across the country.
Okay.
And it is producing books for Delhi. AICB went to the court and got an order from the High Court of Delhi that the Delhi government must provide books in Braille, all copies of all books in Braille, to all blind children from class 1 to 12 at the beginning of each academic session. And that was a huge decision. And our confederation and NFB, which we spoke of earlier, are producing books for Delhi and other states too. AICB is doing it for other states as well. And the board, we are doing the Delhi board, the CBSE, the UP board, the boards in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Haryana, Bihar, and people have come to AICB from states like Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh as well. So a variety of boards and textbook requirements. For the adult readers, National Book Trust of India and AICB have forged a partnership wherein for the first time a number of useful titles of National Book Trust have been produced at the AICB Braille Press in Braille, in English and Hindi, and in cooperation with other organizations. These books are now being produced in several other Indian languages too, like Gujarati, Marathi, Tamil, etc.
और सर जैसे हमने शॉर्ट हैंड के बारे में हमें दिखाया था बेसिकली, तो हमें इतना पता है कि लाइक फॉर द ब्रेल देयर इज़ द डिफरेंट कोडिंग सिस्टम, ब्रेल स्लेट होती है, हमारे पास ब्रेलर होता है, पर जो शॉर्ट हैंड सीखते हैं बेसिकली उसके लिए भी कोई पर्टिकुलर डिवाइस होता है फॉर द विजुअली इम्पेयर्ड और द नॉर्मल टाइप राइटर विच द नॉर्मल विजन साइटेड पर्सन इज यूजिंग?
It is a combination of a special device and the normal typewriter. The special device is what we call a Braille shorthand machine. And there is an extended tape-like of an object on which the shorthand machine writes out, embosses material from the dictation of an employer. The person takes the dictation in Braille on the shorthand machine. There is a Braille shorthand code, like there is a shorthand code for print. And once he has embossed it on the shorthand machine, then he goes to the ordinary typewriter or the ordinary computer and types it out on the computer or the typewriter. Now there are about 250 of the ex-trainees of this course, stenography course, who have been employed in the government, in the nationalized banks, and they are now working as stenographers at par with their cited colleagues, working in regular banks, regular ministries as stenographers. And many of them are performing very well. About 12 of them have been adjudged most outstanding employees, handicapped employees, and given awards, national awards by the President of India.
वैसे ये जो बात करी थी हमने कि प्रिवेंशन ऑफ ब्लाइंडनेस प्रोग्राम्स जो चल रहे हैं और जो CBR के थ्रू है या आउटरीच प्रोग्राम्स हैं, वहाँ पे अगर सर्जरीज कंडक्ट करवानी होती है तो भी क्या AICB का पार्ट होता है उसमें?
AICB is closely involved with this kind of activity. In the places, at present there are 4 states where we are working in the rural areas. In those areas, wherever there are cases which are identified by our optometrist and the ophthalmologist, which requires IOL surgery, then free IOL surgery is arranged for the needy rural client in a nearby district level hospital. And in Delhi, at the AICB main office in Rohini, there is a special low vision clinic where persons having refractive errors and other correction related problems come for treatment, and they get glasses, eyeglasses, corrective glasses at greatly subsidized costs.
And what steps like AICB has taken for the women empowerment?
There are 2 major initiatives which AICB has undertaken in this direction. One, in all the educational and training programs, emphasis is always continually laid on to the maximum extent. We are not claiming that it is always possible, but equal representation of male and female trainees on all AICB educational and training courses, be it the school, be it the shorthand training course, computer training, or crisis management, or rural rehabilitation. The other initiative has various components. One, AICB has established a national forum of blind women, and that looks after issues and concerns relating to visually impaired women across the country. It has representation from all the regions. Then at our own office in Rohini, the Confederation is running a hostel for college-going blind girls. There, about 40 visually impaired girl students pursuing graduate and postgraduate courses in Delhi University are provided board, lodge, mobility training, and reader services absolutely free of cost. For women, the Confederation also runs a scholarship scheme. Merit scholarships are granted to blind girls who are studying for their undergraduate, B.Ed, and postgraduate courses. The scholarships are of the value of rupees 1,000, 1,200, and 1,500 per month. The criterion is, of course, the means test, income up to a certain limit, and the applicant should have secured at least 55 to 60% marks at the +2 stage. Then we have the Confederation has been running for the last 4 years an activity which is known intensive training course for visually impaired women. These courses are of 6 weeks duration, 6 weeks duration. Here, educated blind girls and women come for training in basic skills of home management, computer induction, personality development, and also, equally importantly, self-defense skills. Because Confederation feels that although there are legislations and enactments which seek to provide empowering provisions to blind women also, it's not easy always for them to go to the court. Therefore, self-help has to be taught. And so, At these courses, they are given training in karate skills.
And so
In addition, we have leadership training programs. Confederation has leadership training programs for blind women from all over the country.
सर जैसे हमने बात करी जो स्कूल के बारे में हम स्पेसिफिक बात कर रहे थे जो हरियाणा में है, वहाँ से क्या देयर इज कुछ बच्चों का मेन स्ट्रीम पार्टिसिपेशन भी हुआ है?
This school in Haryana is up to class 8, and after class 8, the children are sent for higher education, for secondary and senior secondary schools. An attempt is made to follow the child-centered approach in an appropriate environment. If the appropriate environment is a special school, then the children are referred to the school like the one which Pandey Sahab is running in Delhi. If there is a good inclusive education or integrated education facility, if there is adequate family backup, then the children are sent to a regular school too. But we are not philosophy bound. For us, the focus, for Confederation, the focus is the child, wherever the child's interests can be best served.
और सर जैसे कि हमने बात करी रूरल रिहैबिलिटेशन में जब हम बात करते हैं, अगर कुछ स्पेसिफिक इंडिविजुअल्स को सपोज दे हैव द डेट्योरेटिंग कंडीशन कि आगे जाके इट विल लीड टू विजुअल इम्पेयरमेंट, इट्स डिसाइडिंग फैक्टर, तो क्या AICB जो उनका ट्रीटमेंट तब तक चलेगा उसको भी क्या फंड करता है?
It certainly will provide basic funding facilities, but if it's a long drawn out treatment, then obviously AICB cannot undertake this for a long time, and that is where comes in the concept of community involvement and community ownership. Then the endeavor of AICB is to motivate the self-government local institutions, panchayat leaders and other community leaders in the rural areas to take over once the Confederation has to withdraw.
और जैसे हमने क्राइसिस मैनेजमेंट के बारे में देखा था, बट बेसिकली दैट मीन्स
Crisis management deals with the crisis that an individual has to undergo when he receives the news that he or she cannot see any longer. So that is called a crisis. When a person is faced with that crisis, he requires counseling, he or she requires training. And that is what this particular unit at AICB endeavors to provide, exactly that. Persons who have lost sight later on, totally shattered as it were, come to this unit. They are gradually trained and counseled that though they cannot see, yet they can cope with the problem that they have come up with. And the objective is, if a person was working, was receiving education, the success would be only if after adjustment training, this is adjustment training, he or she can return to his original place of work or education.
और इन एस्पेक्ट टू रिक्रिएशनल एक्टिविटीज़, एक तो हमने मूवी में ही देखा कि देयर वर लाइक डांस सीक्वेंसेस ऑर्गेनाइज्ड, बट देयर आर अदर रिक्रिएशनल एक्टिविटीज़ व्हिच AICB is taking up for the visually impaired children.
For visually impaired persons, AICB is certainly trying to encourage as much cultural activities as possible. It is also participating in all the competitions and cultural activities which are organized in the city and elsewhere. And at the school level, it is preparing children for sports and other activities. It has also taken part in a big way in the bicentenary Louis birth celebrations, which have just concluded, where also it promoted a number of cultural activities at the school level and at the college level.
So that was all about AICB, and we have discussed up till about NIVH, the National Association for Blind India. We have discussed about NFB, and we have discussed about All India Confederation of the Blind. We'll carry on with our discussion for the organizations and the associations working in the field of visual impairment after a short break.
The state of knowledge exists. The will, the capacity, and method are usually the problem. मानसिक मंदता एक ऐसी विकलांगता है जो 18 वर्ष की आयु से पूर्व कभी भी हो सकती है। जिसमें व्यवहार अनुकूलता में कमी एवं बुद्धि क्षमता 70% से कम होती है। Alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. भारतीय पुनर्वास परिषद द्वारा देश भर में पंजीकृत केंद्र इस बात को प्रमाणित करते हैं। NIMH प्रादेशिक केंद्र नई दिल्ली एक ऐसा ही केंद्र है जहां छात्रों को प्रशिक्षण दिया जाता है। जिसके उपरांत वे मंदबुद्धि बच्चों की सेवा में नियुक्त होते हैं। क्लासरूम टीचिंग, ग्रुप टीचिंग एवं भारतीय पुनर्वास परिषद के नव शिखर चैनल पर प्रसारित टेलीकॉन्फ्रेंसेस द्वारा संबंधित विषयों पर विस्तार पूर्वक ज्ञान दिया जाता है। मेडिकल, ऑक्यूपेशनल थेरेपी, फिजियोथेरेपी, स्पीच थेरेपी, साइकोलॉजी और स्पेशल एजुकेशन जैसे क्षेत्रों में छात्रों को प्रशिक्षित किया जाता है। प्रयोगात्मक अनुभव एवं अभ्यास के लिए टीचर ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम के उपरांत छात्रों को मंदबुद्धि बच्चों के साथ कक्षाओं में नियुक्त किया जाता है और इंडिविजुअलाइज्ड एजुकेशन प्लान का भी आधार बनाया जाता है, जिससे वे संपूर्ण शिक्षा एवं चिकित्सा शैली को समझ सकें। इस पूरे प्रशिक्षण कार्यक्रम के दौरान विद्यार्थी जर्नल्स, न्यूज़लेटर्स, पेरियोडिकल्स, चार्ट्स, मॉडल्स, कंप्यूटर ट्रेनिंग एवं टेक्स्ट बुक्स का उपयोग कर सकते हैं। कहते हैं, कीप योर फेस टू द सनशाइन एंड यू कैन नॉट सी द शैडो। इसी बात को ध्यान में रखते हुए विद्यार्थियों को सरकारी एवं गैर सरकारी संस्थाओं में नियुक्त किया जाता है, जहां वे मंदबुद्धि बच्चों के लिए निरीक्षण, प्रशिक्षण एवं अनुसंधान का दायित्व संभालते हैं। और इसके पश्चात ये विद्यार्थी इस प्रशिक्षण का उपयोग मंदबुद्धि बच्चों के सामाजिक एवं शैक्षणिक उत्थान एवं विकास में करते हैं और एक लक्ष्य की ओर आगे बढ़ते हैं। और फिर लक्ष्य कितना ही दूर हो, फासला नजरों का धोखा भी तो हो सकता है। वो मिले या ना मिले, हाथ बढ़ाकर देखो।
वेलकम बैक। ब्रेक पे जाने से पहले वी हैव डिस्कस्ड AICB, which is All India Confederation of the Blind, in detail. आगे बढ़ने से पहले या किसी और ऑर्गेनाइजेशन या एसोसिएशन के ऊपर चर्चा करने से पहले मैं मित्तल सर से ये पूछना चाहूँगी कि हमने देखा नेशनल फेडरेशन ऑफ द ब्लाइंड एंड एक हमने देखा ऑल इंडिया कॉन्फेडरेशन ऑफ द ब्लाइंड। सो ये फेडरेशन और कॉन्फेडरेशन में क्या डिफरेंस है?
You see, the basic difference is that National Federation of the Blind is membership based, which means any individual blind person can become a member of NFB. All India Confederation is not membership based, but it is, as the term suggests, a confederation of organization. Here the member is not an individual, but organizations, state level organizations, district level organizations, which are working with visually impaired persons. So that is the basic underlying point of difference.
थैंक यू सर। तो आगे बढ़ते हुए हम अपने नेक्स्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के बारे में डिस्कस करेंगे जो है इंडियन ब्लाइंड स्पोर्ट्स एसोसिएशन। आई वुड लाइक पांडे सर टू कंटिन्यू विद दिस।
इंडियन ब्लाइंड स्पोर्ट्स एसोसिएशन जो है शायद सबसे पुरानी संस्था है जो राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर खेलों का प्रोत्साहन दे रही है, और हमारा उद्देश्य संस्था का एनकरेजिंग स्पोर्ट्स टैलेंट अमंग द विजुअली चैलेंज्ड। ऊपर से तो बिल्कुल बहुत साधारण सी बात लगती है, मगर हम ये इस चीज़ में विश्वास करते हैं कि स्पोर्ट्स जो है, चाहे एक एबल बॉडी पर्सन करे या किसी फिजिकल हैंडीकैप के साथ भी जिसके शरीर में है, वो स्पोर्ट्स जो है बिल्कुल बराबर का सीरियस स्पोर्ट्स है। और कोशिश ये है कि इस स्पोर्ट्स में स्पोर्ट्स को सीरियसली लेने के लिए छोटे स्तर से, स्कूलों के स्तर से लोगों का पार्टिसिपेशन हो। और सन 1982 जब दिल्ली में एशियन गेम्स हुए थे, द ब्लाइंड रिलीफ एसोसिएशन ने एक ऑल इंडिया स्पोर्ट्स मीट फॉर द ब्लाइंड ऑर्गेनाइज की थी। वहाँ से ये बात लगी कि जिसने पूरे हिंदुस्तान से अलग जितनी भी संस्थाएं, जितने स्कूल्स एंड कॉलेजेस, स्कूल्स एंड इंस्टीट्यूशंस working for the blind, they were invited to take part in the sports meet at a national level, which happened in Delhi in 1982. And here is a slide. You can see a picture of the first meet, and you can see Mr. Mittal, who is sitting just next to me, addressing the people at the inauguration of the All India Sports Meet for the Blind. And subsequently we held the meet in national stadiums, and we continue to have sports meet, annual sports meet, national sports meet. In 1986 it was thought that there should be a national body which should work specifically for promotion of sports for the visually challenged persons, national level sports activities, and an important thing is to standardize such activities across the country. And this is how in 1986 Indian Blind Sports Association came into being. Well, important objectives were, of course, the promoting national level sports activities among the visually impaired, then bringing standardization of sports as per international norms, because it's very important. Unless you have standards, you cannot have true competition at the standardized format. And this is how it works. Then the other important thing is that besides beyond the national level participation, there should be international participation also, and so it happened that now, as far as the legal status of the association is concerned, it is a registered non-profit body under Societies Registration Act 21 of 1860, and it is also besides other things, it's the Income Tax Act exemption is there, and donations to the associations are exempted. Now, the other important thing is the recognitions and affiliations that we were talking about. What makes an organization a national? We are very happy to say the Indian Blind Sports Association is recognized as a national sports body by Indian Olympic Association, which is the highest sports body in the country. Right. That's an apex body. And Indian Blind Sports Association is also affiliated to the Paralympic Committee of India, which is in charge of the disability sports in the country, the para sports.
So, ये जो Special Olympics और Paralympics है, it's one and the same thing?
No, Special Olympics is for mentally challenged children, but whereas Paralympics is paraplegics or orthopedically handicapped.
Right.
Yeah, and including blindness. In fact, it started with the paraplegic sports for the paraplegic, and later on, blind sports also became a part of it.
Okay.
And the association has close relations with Sports Authority of India also, which gives us its expertise, shares its expertise with us. And the other most important thing is achievement of the association, or is that the association is affiliated to the International Blind Sport Federation, IPSA, which again is IPSA. We also call Indian Blind Sport Association also IPSA.
Okay.
Yes, that's the apex world body on blind sports. That has helped us in standardizing sports as per the international norms. Now, the main activities of our association is to organizing national sports meet for the blind. That was the very first activity, and so far we have held 16 national sports meet since 1982, if we count the
that's
82 the
great.
before. And then it is not just we call sportsmen. We want that the trainers of the visually challenged athletes, they should also be trained properly in a scientific manner. So we organize coaching camps and seminar on blind sports. And one of this, besides, we were mainly earlier into the athletics, but that was why we were into athletics. That again is because athletics require a minimum of requirement. As you see, most of the institution for the visually challenged, they do not have much facilities, resources are not there.
Right.
But athletics is one thing which can be started with the rudimentary facilities are available. So athletics happens to be the core area of our activity. But besides that, we are now promoting 5-a-side football tournament for B1. When I say B1, the B1 means totally blind sports
Okay.
person.
एंड सर, ये जो हम बात करें नेशनल स्पोर्ट्स मीट्स फॉर द ब्लाइंड,
जी।
तो जो आपकी एसोसिएशन है, क्या इट सेंड लेटर टू द अदर ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस फॉर हु आर इन द फील्ड ऑफ विजुअली इम्पेयर्ड, या व्हाट, लाइक नोटिस कैसे होता है ये?
Yes, in fact, if you, I will talk about the structure of our organization also. We have actually about 125 institutions and schools for the visually challenged and other organizations working in the area of visual impairment. They are members of our association, and they are all affiliated to us. We send, whenever we hold any coaching camp or national sports meet, we send circular to all of them. They select athletes according to this the qualification that we inform them, and they participate in our national sports meet.
तो मतलब उनकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस या उनके स्कूल्स में भी दे विल रिसीव, द चिल्ड्रन आर रिसीविंग द कोचिंग रिगार्डिंग डिफरेंट एथलेटिक्स, और व्हाट यू सेंड कोचिंग या गाइड्स टू द स्कूल्स देयर?
हाँ, ये देखिए, इंडिविजुअल इंस्टीट्यूशन को तो भेज पाना संभव नहीं है. इसी वजह से हम लोगों ने नेशनल कोचिंग कैंप, एथलेटिक्स कोचिंग कैंप हम लगाते हैं, ताकि वो अपने वहाँ के जो भी ट्रेनर हैं या स्पोर्ट्स टीचर हैं, उनको कुछ ट्रेन कर सकें, ताकि वो साइंटिफिक तरीके से किस तरह से वो बेस्ट परफॉर्म कर सकते हैं, उनको इस किस्म की ट्रेनिंग दें. तो ये तरीका है. अब अगर हकीकत तो ये है कि स्कूल्स में, बहुत से स्कूल्स में स्पोर्ट्स टीचर तक नहीं है, कोई इंस्ट्रक्टर्स तक नहीं है, और कोई अपने शौक से कोई टीचर हैं, वो उनको ट्रेनिंग देते हैं. बट इवन दोज पीपल, इफ दे कम, वी गिव देम द ट्रेनिंग हाउ दे शुड ट्रेन. So then I was mentioning about 5-a-side football national tournaments we organize annually. Then we have also started organizing powerlifting championships, and of course at international level our association has been participating in IPSA World Championship and Games for the Blind. The first one was held in 1998, and the second one in Quebec, Canada in 2003, and then in Sao Paulo in 2007.
सर, जैसे कि हम बात कर रहे हैं कि कोचिंग कैंप्स आपकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑर्गेनाइज करती है डिफरेंट स्कूल्स एंड इंस्टीट्यूशंस में, एंड जैसे कि स्पोर्ट्स मीट का सर्कुलर निकला, एंड उस स्कूल से जितने भी सिलेक्टेड स्टूडेंट्स हैं आपके ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में आए. आफ्टर दैट जो आपके कोचिंग गाइड्स हैं, आपके इंस्टीट्यूट के जो कोचिंग गाइड हैं, वही उनको कोचिंग प्रोवाइड करते हैं फॉर द फर्दर फाइननेस इन देयर स्किल्स, या उनकी स्कूल से भी जो है कंपनी करते हैं गाइड्स?
देखिए, ऐसा होता है, जब कोई टीम हम मंगाते हैं, हम ये उम्मीद करते हैं कि वो कुछ ट्रेन बच्चों को भेजेंगे. यानी कि हमारी भी जो क्वालिफाइंग स्टैंडर्ड्स होते हैं, क्योंकि साल दर साल हमारी जो नेशनल मीट हो रही है उसमें स्तर बढ़ते जा रहे हैं. वजह यह है कि वहाँ पर ट्रेनिंग हो रही है, कुछ लोग कोशिश कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि टूर्नामेंट होते हैं इसलिए लोग प्रयास भी करते हैं. मगर जो हमारा कोचिंग कैंप का जो है प्रोग्राम, वो अलग है. वो इस नेशनल मीट के साथ नहीं जुड़ा है, बल्कि वो इंडिपेंडेंट प्रोग्राम होता है, जिसमें हम अलग से उनके कोचेस को और एक एथलीट को बुलाते हैं, ताकि उनको ट्रेनिंग दी जा सके. मैं आपको बता रहा था इंटरनेशनल पार्टिसिपेशन में अपनी एक्टिविटीज़ में. एक हमें पहली बारी इस साल हमारे एसोसिएशन ने इप्सा वर्ल्ड यूथ एंड स्टूडेंट चैंपियनशिप, जो कि कोलोराडो स्प्रिंग्स यूएसए में हुई थी, उसमें पार्टिसिपेट हमने किया है, और जिसके बारे में आपको आगे में बताएंगे. और एक हम काम कर रहे हैं कि कुछ नए स्पोर्ट्स, जैसे जिनको विजुअली चैलेंज के लिए इंट्रोड्यूस किया जा सके। हालांकि कुछ स्पोर्ट्स इंट्रोड्यूस हैं, जैसे कबड्डी जैसा स्थानीय खेल है जो कि पूरे भारत में बहुत सी जगह खेला जा रहा है, मगर क्योंकि उसमें बहुत अधिक स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन नहीं है तो हमने एक कोचिंग कैंप किया था। उसके बाद हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि उसके जो रूल्स हैं वो स्टैंडर्डाइज हो जाएं और फिर उस रूल के मुताबिक पूरे नेशनल लेवल पे कबड्डी के टूर्नामेंट्स भी किए जा सकें।
सर जैसे कबड्डी की बात आई तो यूजुअली वो अगर हम ब्लाइंड के एस्पेक्ट में देखें तो उनके पैर में कुछ ऑडियो क्लू या ऐसे घुंघरू जैसा बात लेते हैं, लाइक उनकी आवाज़ फॉलो करके। स्टिल नाउ दैट इज़ फॉलोड।
अब इसी में जैसे आपने ये बड़ा अच्छा एक उदाहरण दिया था कि कुछ जगह पर घुंघरू से खेलते हैं, मगर कबड्डी में मुंह से भी बोला जाता है कबड्डी कबड्डी कबड्डी।
हाँ जी।
तो उससे भी मालूम हो जाता है क्या घुंघरू वाकई ज़रूरी है कि नहीं है, क्या रूल ऐसे बनाए जाए कि जो सामान्य रूलों से बहुत ही अलग हो जाए। तो इन सब चीज़ों पर चर्चा होती है, सभी खेलों में होती है, केवल इसी में नहीं। जैसे जूडो है, उसमें क्या जो ब्लाइंड के लिए जूडो के रूल्स क्या बिल्कुल अलग होने चाहिए। तो कोशिश ये है कि इंटरनेशनल जो लेवल पे जो संस्थाएं काम करती हैं उनकी राय है कि जहाँ तक हो वो जो साधारण जो खेल जिस तरह से खेला जाता है उसके करीब से करीब हो। जहाँ अत्यंत आवश्यकता हो, क्यूज की ज़रूरत हो, ज़रूर उधर क्यूज भी होने चाहिए।
ओके।
जैसा हमने पहले बताया था कि हमारे 125 संस्थाएं हमारे मेंबर हैं और 20 states are represented in our, and then we have an executive committee which is headed by chairman Mr. Karthike Bharatram, and Mr. Mittal is our vice chairman, and I am honorary general secretary. Coming to national sports meet जो कि हमारी सबसे पहली एक्टिविटी है, मैं बताना चाहूँगा कि this is the largest sports meet event for the visually challenged sports person organized regularly since 1982. I think we can surely proudly claim this. And as I mentioned, it is mainly we cover athletics, and occasionally we had swimming also included in it, and also chess events are included. Now recently the International Blind Sports Association didn't have chess as one of its sports, but now this year they have included chess also as one of the sports under IPSA, International IPSA. So we also hope to continue, restart the chess tournaments also during our national sports meet. Now our sports meets are organized biannually, 2 साल में एक बार होती हैं। और एक बड़ी बात है कि शुरू में पहली 15 मीट हमारी सब दिल्ली में ऑर्गेनाइज हुई, मगर हमारी 16वीं मीट जो 2008 में हुई वो लुधियाना पंजाब में हुई थी, जिसके को-होस्ट थे वहाँ पर पंजाब स्पोर्ट्स एसोसिएशन फॉर द ब्लाइंड और VRTS लुधियाना और दिल्ली से ब्लाइंड रिलीफ एसोसिएशन और इप्सा तो था ही उसमें। ये कुछ आप दृश्य देख सकते हैं जो हमारी स्पोर्ट्स मीट के हैं। ये नेशनल स्टेडियम में 80 के दशक में जब हमारी स्पोर्ट्स मीट हुई थी उसके कुछ दृश्य हैं। ये हमारी जो 15वीं मीट दिल्ली में हुई थी सन 2006 में, उसके दृश्य हैं। ये जवाहरलाल नेहरू स्टेडियम में ऑर्गेनाइज की गई थी। इसमें आप देखेंगे कुछ दौड़ते हुए खिलाड़ी हैं, ये भी दौड़ का है। ये टोटली ब्लाइंड, इसमें आप देखेंगे 2 जने साथ साथ दौड़ रहे हैं।
हाँ जी।
ये जो स्पोर्ट्स मीट जो इतनी भी ऑर्गेनाइज होती हैं जो उसमें एथलेटिक्स में, उसमें 3 कैटेगरी ब्लाइंडनेस से अलग इवेंट किए जाते हैं। एक टोटली ब्लाइंड के लिए है, एक विद वेरी लिमिटेड विजन होता है जिसको B2 हम कहते हैं, और एक B3 जिसमें सब्सटेंटिव विजन होता है। और इस तरह से B1, B2, B3 के 3 अलग अलग इवेंट्स होंगे। अगर 100 मीटर की रेस है तो B1 की अलग होगी, B2 की अलग होगी और B3 की अलग होगी। उसके मेडिकल क्लासिफिकेशन के मुताबिक उनको किया जाता है। जहाँ तक B1 का है, जो बिल्कुल नहीं देख पाते हैं, उनके लिए एक ट्रैक के अंदर दौड़ने के लिए एक गाइड रनर की बिल्कुल आवश्यकता होती है। और ये इंश्योर करने के लिए कि किसी की लिमिटेड विजन का भी, क्योंकि उसमें एक रेंज है विजन का, कोई उसका लाभ ना उठा पाए, तो सभी खिलाड़ियों की आंख पर पट्टी बांध दी जाती है ताकि सेम कंडीशन में सब दौड़ें। ये और इसी तरह से ये भाला फेंक है, जेवलिन थ्रो, एक लड़की फेंक रही है भाला। ये शॉट पुट का है, एक लड़की शॉट पुट फेंक रही हैं। ये भी एक शॉट पुट का है। ये पोडियम में जिनको गोल्ड मेडल, सिल्वर, ब्रॉन्ज मेडल मिला है। ये हम आपको 16वीं मीट में ले चलते हैं जो कि लुधियाना में हुई थी। इसका उद्घाटन पंजाब के मुख्यमंत्री श्री प्रकाश सिंह बादल ने किया था। ये उसके मंच का दृश्य है, जैसा आप देख सकते हैं मंच पे सब। इस मीट में एक बड़ी खास बात थी कि हमने एक विदेश से भी, एक मॉरिशस से हमने टीम को बुलाया था और नेपाल की टीम को भी हमने बुलाया था। वो मगर आते आते पहुंच नहीं पाए, मगर और पाकिस्तान से कुछ खिलाड़ी लोग आए थे वो देखने के लिए कि हम किस तरह से करते हैं। और मुझे हमें बड़ी खुशी है बताते हुए कि बहुत से अन्य देश के लोग भी हैं, अमेरिका से भी और न्यूजीलैंड से, ऑस्ट्रेलिया से, वो चाहते हैं कि भारत आएँ और हमारी मीट्स में पार्टिसिपेट करें। उन्होंने हमें इशारा ज़रूर किया है, तो हम उम्मीद कर रहे हैं कि हमारी भविष्य की मीट में वो लोग भी आएंगे।
सर, जैसे हम एजुकेशन में बात करते हैं, इंक्लूसिव एजुकेशन या मेन स्ट्रीम, व्हाई नॉट इन दिस एस्पेक्ट? व्हाई टू हैव अ पैरालंपिक्स और स्पेशल ओलंपिक्स? व्हाई नॉट टू प्रमोट देम इनटू द लाइक ओलंपिक्स और विद अदर नॉर्मल विजन पर्सन्स?
जी, उसमें देखिए दो चीज़ हैं। एक स्तर पर तो इंक्लूशन हो भी रहा है, वो है जहाँ बहुत आसानी से संभव है। वो है जो B2 और B3 लेवल के जो क्लासिफिकेशन के एथलीट्स हैं, वो लोग जैसे स्कूलों, जैसे स्पेशल स्कूल में तो सभी बच्चे कर पाते हैं, खेल पाते हैं, मगर यूनिवर्सिटी लेवल पर भी जाकर के हमने देखा है बहुत से हमारे आउटस्टैंडिंग एथलीट्स हैं जो कि यूनिवर्सिटी लेवल पर साइटेड लोगों के साथ एथलेटिक्स पार्ट ले रहे हैं और केवल भाग ही नहीं ले रहे हैं, वो वहाँ पर प्रथम स्थान और दूसरा स्थान तक ले रहे हैं। तो B2 और B3 कैटेगरी के जो एथलीट्स हैं उनमें इंटीग्रेशन की इतनी दिक्कत नहीं है। केवल थोड़ी जो समस्या आती है, जो बड़ी समस्या आती है, वो है B1 की, क्योंकि एक ट्रैक में अगर आप देखिए 8 ट्रैक होते हैं। जब B1 वाला चलेगा तो साथ में गाइड रनर भी होगा, तो उसमें 4 ट्रैक का ही हो सकता है। तो उसमें और थोड़ा परफॉर्मेंस में कुछ 19 ज़रूर होता है, मगर हमारे जो एथलीट्स जो हैं, छोटे बच्चे भी, हर एक को मालूम है कल अगर कोई अंतर्राष्ट्रीय रिकॉर्ड टूटता है, उनको पूरा मालूम है कौन सा, और उनकी खुद की कितनी रनिंग है, हिंदुस्तान में कौन सबसे अच्छा है, ब्लाइंड किस स्तर पर दौड़ रहे हैं, उसका सबको याद है। उनको सेकंड्स, फ्रैक्शन ऑफ सेकंड्स तक की भी हमारे बच्चों को पूरे वो कॉन्शियस है इस चीज़ के। उसके बारे में भी मैं 2-4 बात करना चाहूँगा। तो ये कुछ दृश्य हैं जो हमारी 16वीं मीट जो लुधियाना में हुई थी उसके हैं।
सर, जैसे आपने B1 की बात करी
जी,
तो स्विमिंग की अगर हम बात करें तो कैन B1, जिनको B1 लेवल का प्रॉब्लम है, क्या वो स्विमिंग में पार्ट ले सकते हैं?
स्विमिंग में पार्ट ले सकते हैं, स्विमिंग कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, उसमें दिक्कत नहीं है।
सर, उसमें हमें क्या वो मॉडिफिकेशंस करनी पड़ेंगी?
स्विमिंग में मॉडिफिकेशन की इतनी आवश्यकता नहीं है। केवल ट्रैक इवेंट्स में, जैसे लॉन्ग जंप है, जो B1 और B2 के जो एथलीट्स हैं वो एक लाइन से जंप की, जब जो जिस लाइन से जंप करते हैं वहाँ से उनको वही कंडीशन में करते हैं जो कि दृष्टिवान लोग जो एथलीट करते हैं। मगर जो B1 कैटेगरी के जो एथलीट हैं उनके लिए एक तो ऑडियो क्यू देना पड़ता है और देने की आवश्यकता होती है, और उनके जो कूदने की जगह है, लाइन के बदले एक स्क्वायर 1 मीटर बाई 1.2 मीटर स्क्वायर का एक इलाका होता है जिसमें चूना लगा होता है, जिससे कूदते हैं। वो किसी भी पॉइंट से वहाँ से कूदेंगे, उनकी तो इस चीज़ की और उनको क्यू देने की भी आवश्यकता होती है। तो वहाँ पर B1 एथलीट में थोड़ी कंडीशंस अलग हो जाती हैं। हाँ, जहाँ तक अगर जूडो कहें तो जूडो में एक टोटली ब्लाइंड जो है वो एक सक्षम या जो दृष्टिवान जूडोका से, जूडो के खिलाड़ी से लड़ सकता है।
I think it's a vast topic and many things can be discussed, but we are running short of time. So can we just quickly run through the slides?
हाँ, यस। तो ये कुछ दृश्य हैं, आप देख सकते हैं। लड़की लॉन्ग जंप, जैसा मैं बता रहा था, थोड़ा सा नेशनल इप्सा की नेशनल स्पोर्ट्स मीट में लगभग 500 एथलीट और सपोर्ट ऑफिशियल्स पार्टिसिपेट करते हैं, और 41 इंस्टीट्यूशन 17 राज्यों से हमारी 16वीं मीट में पार्टिसिपेशन हुआ था, जिसमें जूनियर और सीनियर, जूनियर एंड ओपन कैटेगरी करी थी, 18 वर्ष से नीचे और 18 वर्ष से ऊपर, और लड़के यानी कि 18 से नीचे लड़कियां और लड़के, और पुरुष ओपन कैटेगरी में पुरुष और महिलाएं। क्लासिफिकेशन के बारे में मैंने बता दिया है, B1, B2 और B3 होती हैं। और हमारी नेशनल मीट में जो इवेंट्स जो है, अब उसके बारे में आपको सरसरी तौर पे बता दूं, 100 मीटर, 200 मीटर, 400 मीटर, 800 मीटर, 1500 मीटर और 5000 मीटर तक के हम इवेंट्स ऑर्गेनाइज करते हैं। और फील्ड इवेंट्स में लॉन्ग जंप है, शॉर्ट पुट है, डिस्कस है, जेवलिन थ्रोज हैं, ये इवेंट्स हमारे हैं। और हम कोशिश करते हैं कि कुछ नए चीज़, नए स्पोर्ट्स का प्रदर्शन भी करें। जैसे 16वीं मीट में हमने पावर लिफ्टिंग का प्रदर्शन किया था। और हमारे कोचिंग कैंप के बारे में हम, जैसे हमने कहा, हमारे उद्देश्य तो ये है कि उनके मेंबर इंस्टीट्यूशन को, उनके एथलीट्स वगैरह को तैयार किया जाए, और उसके लिए हम एक्सपर्ट्स, कोचेज़ और लोगों को बुलाते हैं और नए नए खेलों के बारे में, उनकी समस्याओं के बारे में बताते हैं। ये दृश्य हमारे कोचिंग कैंप का, जिसमें एक हमारे एक्सपर्ट कोच हैं SS राय, जो कि शॉर्ट पुट के बारे में बता रहे हैं। इसमें स्टार्टिंग कैसे करनी चाहिए उसके बारे में ट्रेनिंग दी जा रही है रेसेस में। ये लॉन्ग जंप के बारे में ट्रेनिंग दी जा रही है। और मैं फुटबॉल के बारे में आया था, मैं समझता हूँ कि कुछ ना कुछ दृश्य फुटबॉल के ज़रूर देख लिए जाएं, और अगर कोई प्रश्न हो आपके तो उसका भी मैं इस बीच जवाब दे दूंगा।
जी हाँ
जी। सो ये आप देख सकते हैं, हमारा जो 5वीं फुटबॉल टूर्नामेंट हुई थी, जो ब्लाइंड रिलीफ एसोसिएशन के ग्राउंड में, इसमें बॉल में एक आवाज़ करती है, जिसको 4 खिलाड़ी मिडफील्ड होते हैं और एक गोलकीपर होता है जो कि देख सकता है, बाकी 4 जो हैं B1 कैटेगरी के होते हैं।
ओके, दैट वाज ऑल
जी
सर। एंड प्रोग्राम ख़त्म करने से पहले सर मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूँगी मित्तल सर कि एक हमने पॉइंट डिस्कस किया था कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स के बारे में फॉर डिफाइनिंग एनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एंड नेशनल वन, जिसमें आपने इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के बारे में बात करी थी। उस पॉइंट को क्या आप डिटेल में बताना चाहेंगे?
Very briefly, the international organization in respect of blindness work is called the World Blind Union, and the 3 organizations we talked about, National NAB India, AICB, NFB. These are the 3 organizations from India which are affiliated to the World Blind Union. So that is why these are the only 3 organizations which are Indian affiliates to the World Organization, the World Blind Union, which has its office in Toronto, and there's a lady from Australia who is the president of this organization. World Blind Union represents all of the 161 million blind and low vision persons from about 171 countries of the world.
Thank you, sir. So this is the end of our today's session, and we discussed about some national organizations or national associations of and for the blind. We discussed about NIVH, we discussed about NAB India, we discussed about NFP, we discussed about AICB, and we discussed about IPSA, which is Indian Blind Sports Organization or Association. And I would like to end the program here, but before that, I would like to thank both of you for coming over here and discussing with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you viewers for maintaining with us. Thank you so much.